After decades of progressive ideology insisting there's no difference between men and women, we find today a growing movement towards traditional family structures. The trad wife, the stay-at-home mum, the wife who packs her husband's lunch. Wow, what a turn of events. But we might ask, could this represent a dangerous step backward, a foolish wish to grovel under Mick Jagger's thumb? Is the increasing popularity of the traditional roles of mother and homemaker among 20-something women today simply a backlash from a feminism that has gone too far? Or might it represent the return toward a deeper wisdom? I would argue that this re-evaluation of certain traditional sex roles is more than a simple reaction to woke pressure, but taps into deep natural longings. These are consistent with nature itself, as well as biblical principles and tried-and-true traditions. More and more people are recognizing the obvious. There are only two sexes, and they must come together if a culture is to survive. We know this from the different DNA of the sexes, different hormones, and the obvious different body structure. Despite decades of educational bias and media portrayal that the sexes are identical, many young people are beginning to recognize that the distinct characteristics and behaviors of each sex may actually serve a purpose beyond individual achievement. As the birth rate plummets and more people avoid marriage, many are perceiving that there may just be some design in the way that men and women are different. Could there be a purpose in such difference? That the sexes are different so they may complement and fulfill each other? That males and females belong together to build a home, a protected nest in which young ones can grow and mature into adults who will carry the community into the future? A sample of biblical teaching. The book of Genesis teaches that God created male and female in his image to be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. They were designed to enact this vocation belonging together as one flesh. The Apostle Paul writes that each sex carries a differentiated power of love that fulfills and enhances the other sex in marriage. This is summarized in the book of Ephesians, where he writes that the husband is to sacrificially love his wife and she is to follow and support his leadership. The current cultural milieu, confusion, competition, and division. Beginning in the 60s, the sexual revolution called young people to rebel against sexual restraint. Virginity and chastity until marriage were disdained in favor of the promise of freedom from old-fashioned traditions that were perceived as repressive. Today, there is a growing recognition that this revolution has brought instead a legacy of mistrust, the anxiety of serial breakups, the loneliness of singleness, as well as a host of sexually transmitted diseases. Women's liberation as a second-wave feminism infiltrated societal attitudes with the complaint that housewives were bored and unfulfilled. Betty Friedan's seminal work, The Feminine Mystique, convinced many that women would be happier pursuing careers outside the home. Nicole King summarizes the impact of this movement in the 21st century, writing that Friedan's drive to set women free from the bondage of home and family has, in the long run, turned out to be a social experiment gone utterly awry. In 1963, Friedan bemoaned the fact that women took pride in describing themselves as housewives. She declared that the real work of America was business, not homemaking. King writes, "Women have taken her advice, leaving home and children to the care of others in ever-increasing numbers while searching for more fulfilling lives elsewhere. But those careers, it turns out, are not as meaningful as they had hoped, and most women still cannot squelch that maternal instinct that drives them to want to bear and care for children more than anything else in the world. As women freed themselves from the strictures of marriage, they would embrace a sexuality in which sex became detached from fertility. Today, some 41% of all births occur out of wedlock. The implication is clear. Sex and marriage no longer go together, and so babies and marriage no longer go together, even though research overwhelmingly shows marriage to be the best environment for raising children. A recent survey of 1,000 mothers by Forbes revealed that while only 10% of stay-at-home mothers wished they still worked, about half of working mothers wished they could stay at home. Study upon study has indicated that most women want to have children, and most women who want to have children want to stay home with them, or at the very most work part-time. More women are acknowledging that having it all is a delusion. because the lingering reality is that most women still feel a sense of guilt about leaving children for long hours. Guilt that men simply do not feel at the same levels. Those women who choose to try to juggle a 60-hour work week with soccer practice, school, and music lessons find themselves torn between two worlds, facing inner conflict that leaves them unsatisfied with their roles. With the dream of housewife thoroughly denigrated, girls in recent decades often have grown up assuming they ought to set their hearts on a career as their first goal, and if possible, to have a family as well. Why not reverse the order? We know the best and safest period to have a first child is in a woman's 20s. After the kids are launched, many years remain to chase other pursuits. King cites Friedan's concern that many housewives of the 50s and 60s feared what they would do when the children left, leaving them with an empty nest. Now, however, the contemporary American woman faces perhaps an even starker reality. With the age of first child rising and the overall birth rate declining, women are increasingly alone in a vulnerable stage of life. The children a woman does have are likely postponing their own family as well, denying mum and dad both the health and emotional benefits of caretaking. In addition to being childless, the baby boomer female is increasingly likely to be divorced. At the very time of life when a woman should be able to rest and enjoy the fruits of a life well lived, while still being of some use to her family, she finds herself increasingly isolated. Although the feminine mystique addressed some real problems in 1963, the proposal to elevate career over homemaking has overall produced dismal results. Nicole King summarizes her conclusions. The modern American woman who has tried to follow freedom and the mandate to pursue a career and raise a family on the side finds herself in constant conflict with her own nature. In trying to straddle the worlds of career and homemaker, today's woman finds herself stressed, tired, and, according to most studies, wanting to return home to be with the children. So are the trad wives onto something? Celebrating the love of children and a homemaking lifestyle? Social media content creators like Nara Smith, Ballerina Farms' Hannah Neeleman, and Esty Williams have garnered millions of followers on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube. I say, good for them. But there is just one problem. Trad wives need trad men. Men who have learned to grow up, step up, take charge and take responsibility. Hopefully that too will become a growing trend. For more on the ways of men and women, please check out Sex and Society, God's Design, Tradition and the Pursuit of Happiness.